we talked to you after the meeting? Can you ride home?
Do you right?
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about that. Thanks. It's. It's like. It's not.
You know what?
There you go.
For the,
What? Oh, yeah. Well, then go in.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you just have to embrace the situation.
Good morning, Ron. So, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Gary,
Second.
second. Okay, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We need to do a resolution for closing the meeting for negotiation strategy. Motion. Second. Second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
It will happen
At six.
at the time indicated in the agenda. Because we're not closing
Oh,
it
yeah.
right now, I just wanted to
Nope.
make it sure that everybody knows that it's at agenda item 11.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment? Consent items. We have a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made, got second discussion?
I just had,
Yes.
never heard back from you.
No, because
My
I was-
question for the rest of the board, was that you approved the coach's handbook. And therein, it states that at this meeting or at an August meeting, all of the continuing coaches, all of the coaches that are known, fall, winter, and spring, would be on this meeting. So I'm wondering why we just had fall.
And I did get the list of all the, I sent that, I forwarded your email to our AD and the high school principal. The high school principal is in charge of non-sporting activities. And he sent back the list, and that was my oversight that I did not get the list of different activities that we do have coaches for in the list. And I have not heard back from the AD, so those will be, that entire slate that we know of will be on the September 3rd.
Okay, thank you. I just think just makes it.
Yep, it's clean.
It's
If
clean.
if we say that's what we're gonna do, that's what we should do, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion items, superintendent evaluation. Want to pass this out. Gary, you have as well, and Michaeline, Gary got one? Okay, this is the evaluation that we talked about going with last year, we approved it. I wanted everybody to get a copy of it. We just had a meeting prior to this one to go over the evaluation, what we're gonna do. I'm hoping we're gonna have another meeting to come up with evaluation for this year, last 16, what would we see?
16,
16, 17, and then we're working on the one for 17, 18, both at the same time. So I would think by next meeting we'll have probably something to go over as far as 16, 17. And then maybe some discussion for 17, 18, but I wanted to give everybody a copy of this to review. So if you have questions before, you can, come on. You might have seen it already, Mike.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, we all, yep.
Yeah, but not, I don't know that everybody had a copy of it, so we don't.
But this is just a sort of a set of principles,
Mhm.
and it's not really do this, then this. That's what you guys have to figure
The
out.
book we had before, except I gave my book to someone to look at, and I never got the book back. So if somebody knows or has another book that we got at the training, because we got a whole book with the spider bound.
Yeah, it was, well, I think you tried to follow some of these things in last year's evaluation. It's just that we never set goals a year ago to be able to reflect on those goals. So my question has been, what's our process going to be for 16-17, since we didn't have goals established for that? We have a strategic plan, we could go back and revisit some of those from the previous evaluation, or there could be other areas.
That's what we did, is we looked at the previous evaluation, and we're looking at picking some things that might have rolled over
Okay,
and used those as starting points, and then there's a couple other things.
that was kind of a morph between this, because it was tying things to goals, but then there was also a board, there was a survey to rank.
So that's kind of what when we had the meeting tonight, we looked at what the 16, or, you know, the last one, 15, 16s were, and see what rolled over to 16, 17, and then we'll put those in the evaluation and a couple other pieces for that evaluation. And then at the same time, we'll look at, okay, now what's next? So we try to get back on track. So, and that's my fault for the time, that you've been out of it.
It's supposed to be a team, so.
Okay, so any other questions, Wendy? Anything else? Old
So
business?
we'll be hearing from you at the
Yeah.
next meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna set up another meeting,
Okay,
and we've got some, let's say, groundwork, right, started. Anyway, old business, items for discussion and approval, set date and time for truth and taxation meeting.
What we suggested the last time was December 7th at 6:30. That would follow what has been done in the past. We had some conversation at the board meeting that maybe 7 would be better. It's up to you guys what you feel is.
We had to approve this tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve setting the date for truth and taxation.
make a motion to set it for 7. I think our discussion was to allow people who work out of town to have time to come, have their meal, and then attend. We could hopefully finish our meeting, you know, and then just go into the truth and taxation. I prefer, instead of interrupting the meeting, maybe trying to do that. We might have to interrupt the meeting anyway, depending on what's on the agenda. Motion is for 7.
Do we have a second?
December 7th.
December 7th.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on it? I think it's a good option. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Policies for second reading. We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion made by Michael to approve policy 303, 513, 604, 612.1, and 613. Second. Second by Ron. Discussion?
I just wanted to know where the procedures for policy 513 are housed, because I'd like to take a look at that. That was a question I had
Yep.
last time, and they're not amended to the policies,
No.
so.
And what we follow is the Iowa acronym it's a form, you come into the office and I'll give you the whole monitor that we follow.
And all of the sites follow that, MNPA, all of the sites.
It's not a, there's the academic intellectual piece, but there's also the social piece and the emotional piece. And anytime you're talking about promoting or retaining, a lot of times that social emotional piece really outweighs the academic intellectual piece. Because especially if you've got a kid that can do more, so intellectually they're ahead. However, if you bump them ahead, sometimes that has more of a damaging effect emotionally and socially. And so we need to make sure that those decisions are made looking at the whole child, and that's what this Iowa survey does.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? New business. Items for discussion and approval. We have a resignation from the board.
That does not require board action, but it should be, according to Gary Lee, who is the deputy executive director of MSBA, needs to be reflected in the minutes. Joe has now moved, and unfortunately his house is just outside of the Houston district. The house at one point was in the Houston district, so
Before they had open enrollment.
right, and so they petitioned prior to open enrollment to redraw the lines because the wife that worked in the house worked in Winona and wanted her children to be in school in Winona, so they worked close to her where she worked. And so the lines were redrawn at that point, which prior to open enrollment, you know how long ago that was. But now, in asking MSBA about it, they said we could work with Winona and petition to redraw district lines again so that the house could be in the Houston district, but until the house is back in the Houston district, Joe can't be on the board. And so, if we can get that the lines redrawn in time for him to file, he can definitely file again to run next November, and he would like to. So he was a very good board member. He had the best interest of all the kids in Wilmington. He really was willing to work hard for the school, and I understand. So I'm very sad that he can't continue to serve for Iowa.
Whose responsibility is it to petition for the lines being drawn? You said before it was the wife that lived in the house before they lived in Winona, so is it the homeowner that is responsible for the petition, or are we? I mean,
I don't know that because he had asked, we called up there, and the people that know that are on vacation this week. So that's where we're at. I mean, we asked the question, who's supposed to do that? And the people that know that, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Because Joe asked, how, can we just change it? You know what I mean? Because that was before open enrollment. And so
The two
Quinn called
MSBA
up the
people on
MSBA.
board relations, and that's why I was talking to Gary Lee
Yeah,
instead
they
of.
said, well, they're on vacation this week, you'll have to wait till they get back to discuss that. So,
I'm just thinking it's the property owner who wishes to be associated with one school district or the other, who probably takes the lead on the action. I mean, I don't know if there are, I don't know.
no, I'm
who's-
assuming that,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, okay.
I'm assuming that would be the
I'm just saying,
case.
are we
Right.
doing it on behalf of Joe, or is Joe?
Well, he had
going to look
asked
into
if
that?
somebody would,
Look into it.
he asked the question and I said, hey, let's call him
Let's
and
look
see what,
and see.
let's ask. I mean, it doesn't hurt to make a phone call,
No, not at all.
and, and the people that know anything are gone. So we get an answer, they said, well, the homeowner has to do the petition, then that's
Then
fine, then Joe will have to go to
Process.
Point and do whatever he has to do.
Okay.
Can that be done year round, or is there a set date it's locked in for a year, for the year?
No, there's just a process
Yeah.
that can be started.
Okay.
Basically, it's,
anytime.
I'm assuming, Josh, it's more like a tax situation.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because the tax base of that at one time was larger than what Joe has now,
Sure,
I
gotcha.
So I'm assuming back in the day, they were probably more than willing because it was a few hundred acres.
Yep.
And that would be like, oh yeah, and now it's not that much. So they may say, yeah, whatever, take it, I don't know. But again, that, once we get some guidance from them, or Joe does,
and Gary
decide.
Lee said that he would also help step through the process too.
And there's nothing in the time frame that would just keep him on, you know, say miss a couple.
No.
No,
There's a statute.
there's
Yeah,
a
there's-
statute.
Okay.
Statute 120, as soon as they
Okay.
move,
Yeah,
no longer reside in the district.
yeah.
you're out.
Even though he may
Do we
own
have
property
any
in the
minutes
district.
back from that far, so we know what happened back then?
Oh,
You mean what happened when he did
Yeah,
it?
I just wondered if the person requested
Well, I think
from
she's,
Winona to be moved into the district, and then Winona District requested
I
us to
And
allow it. I don't
it
know.
doesn't really matter what the process was, because I'm sure they followed the legal process then, and legal processes oftentimes morph. And so we're just going to look at what is required.
well, let's not say
What's required
necessarily
now?
we'll find
Yeah.
out what they tell us what has to be done, and we'll let you know. Joe
Yep.
can take it from there. You know, if he
Yep.
wants to call whoever he needs to call and pursue it. I called him and asked him, do you wanna, you know, here's what we found out. I said, you wanna do that? He goes, yeah. So if we hear something back, we'll let you know who to call. So I figured that's the, you know, the right thing to do, so.
Okay.
I would do that for anybody if they ask.
So now the minutes can reflect that the resignation was acknowledged.
Any other questions, concerns on that?
Well, since he has been how many, several years, 2 terms, 3
Yeah.
terms? 2 terms.
Mhm.
You know, should we send a letter?
Yes.
I mean, I would like the board to send a letter or some sort of recognition to thank him for.
I bought him a
his
beer
time.
the other day. He said,
Oh, that's good,
Well,
we're good then.
No,
I mean, I know you want the minutes to reflect it, but I'm suggesting that we as a board extend some sort of.
thank you.
Do you have any of those whereas things in your pocket?
We haven't done those for board members, but we could think about one.
Yeah,
Do it for next time.
I do think he needs to be thanked.
He just sent us I mean, it just basically happened because the dates were kind of, everything was dependent on, as far as his other house. The people that bought his other house do have 2 children that will be coming here,
Oh, they will.
so that's a plus. Yeah,
And his children,
and his kids,
the open enrollment papers are coming in, so.
so we'll continue with those. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Well, maybe by the next one we'll know. I mean, if he's going to petition to get back in here, then
Well, if you look at the map, Ron, it's like if you were to walk out to the end of his driveway, you'd be fine.
But it's where his house is.
Where it's just because, you know,
you can't live in one of those little bus waiting houses.
And he does, actually, he owns more property in the Houston district than he does in the Winona district, and he's got a PO box in the Houston district, and I said you'd have to live in your PO box.
yeah,
That'd be tight.
yeah.
And I said statute's very clear, and I wish there was some other way
And it
around.
might have been different years ago, it might have been
Yeah.
a little more flexible, but it's changed, so, well, you know, he can deal with it, we'll see what happens. So, again, you're right, Michael, we should do something, saying
Yes.
thank you for his service type of thing. And maybe by the next meeting, we'll put together a little,
That would be great.
so.
Well, is there any chance the time frame wouldn't be that long to get all that changed so he could be reappointed?
We won't know until we get to, you know, or we won't know, and, I mean, and then he would have to get with those people next week, cause that's when they're coming back.
Right, and when we get to the next agenda item, we have some wiggle room.
Okay.
Anyway, nothing else on that, we'll move on to the appointment process, which is what Ken was just,
Okay. In the appointment process, what I was alluding to before, once this group first decides the process that's going to be used to fill the vacant seat, the reason that you can appoint is because the only time we're allowed to have elections are on the Tuesday in November, election day. We would have to have a special election. However, since we are officially acknowledging the resignation today, we are within that, we are less than 90 days out from the election. And if you are less than 90 days out of the election, you do not have enough time to actually submit all the paperwork and the notifications necessary and get all the information out as far as allowing candidates to apply. So since we are within that window, you as a board can appoint. However, there are several different ways several different processes or manners in which names can be generated. Once we come up with the name, we still have to wait 30 days. After that name becomes official at a board meeting, so we have to name that person publicly. So let's say we come up with a name, finally, we figure out the process tonight. If we get a name on the 3rd, discuss it, and then publicly say the name, or it's September 7th is our next?
Yes.
Yes, September 7th, thank you. And then September, it would be the 21st would be the September meeting where the name would be publicly stated. We couldn't actually seat that new member until October 23rd. So, because anytime someone is officially named, there has to be a 30-day waiting period before the person can be sworn in. So the community has a choice to voice an opposition, and the opposition, it's a petition. We have to look at the number of people who voted within our school district in the last election in November, then calculate 5% of that. And a petition coming in with that number of signatures would then be a valid petition in opposition of the name.
Okay.
Okay,
So you stand on one foot, jump up and down.
I will come up with all the numbers and everything
Yeah,
for
but-
the September 3rd. But right now, what I'm asking, we need to come up with a very specific process. We have a choice of appointing a former board member who is willing to serve. If that's what you're going to choose to do, then we have the next 2 weeks to basically canvass the former board members who are still around and might be willing to serve. And we do have several former board members in the community. Just to think of some off.
But they still have to go through the process.
Right,
Now, let me ask before you go through that all, when you just said these dates, so technically whoever this person may be, we appoint, it's still not gonna be till November, till they actually can be on the board.
October 2nd October meeting, you said. If we named the person on
I
September 7th.
thought you said it's gotta be
30
September
days.
October,
21st.
when's our second meeting in October?
That's what I read.
It depends on when that second meeting in October,
The
whether the
first
person.
meeting wouldn't be 30 days out.
No,
The
it
second
would be the
meeting.
second
The
meeting.
second meeting in
The second-
October,
If it's past the 21st, then it would be after 30 days, right?
okay.
So it'd have to be after the
Lisa,
21st.
what's the third Thursday in October? The
And Wednesday, would it,
19th,
if we
so
were
the
to go,
19th, if the 19th is the third Thursday, that's not time enough, so the first meeting in November will be the first time this person could be
yeah,
seated.
right.
But how long can we wait? How long can we go with 6?
Yeah, do we have to appoint
Can
or
we wait till January? Do we have to do it within so many days?
Because there's more than
a year?
a year, we have to appoint. If there was,
Within how many days?
we have to go through our process, and so let's say,
But if we don't come up with a name, we don't have anybody.
We can come up with names, but I don't
Yeah.
think they're gonna agree.
well, see, that you have to, we can't come up with a name unless we have reached out to the person to see if he or she is willing, because we
But if we
do
can't
have,
find anybody, we just gotta
Okay.
keep looking.
we have to keep looking. So we can appoint the former board member who is willing to serve, and so
Mhm.
then we have to come up with the process of figuring out how we find out who is willing to serve and in what order we ask and when we stop asking. So do we start with the most recently serving board members and work back through those who served? So then Kevin would be the most recently, the most recent board member. Steve Shoy would be the one before that. The one before Steve Shoy, is that Audrey Hegland or Kathy Solom?
I think it's
Or
Audrey and then Kathy.
Eileen was on,
Eileen was before
Hegland.
me,
And eventually you get back to Jack Kerrigan, because
yeah.
he was on at one point. Lloyd Vicks is out of the community, so he can't serve anymore. But then we come up with that process of figuring out, so we keep going until we see if one of
But
those
that
will
doesn't mean
serve.
we have to pick a past.
No, that's one option that the
Mhm.
board can choose, and then we have to figure out the process with it. Number two,
Question
we
on
can,
that though.
yeah,
It sounds like what you're saying is the most recent board member would have first option.
That's up to
If
us.
we agree
If
to
we
that.
If you agree to
It's-
that.
It's just whatever we agree to.
You can pick to
as
Lloyd
a
Benson.
group, what I'm saying is you've got these options, but within these options, you guys have to be very specific about what the process and procedure is going to be within that option.
Okay.
And when do we, and I guess back to my original question, when do we have to determine this?
The process,
Yes.
Gary said the process should be decided at your next board meeting.
So we have to decide tonight,
No.
next
The
board.
process,
So
not,
we're,
not,
we
not,
never make a decision in it. We always talk about something and then vote on another, and that's our,
If-
I don't understand why we would have to make the decision
Just because
tonight.
he says it, I don't think it means it's a requirement.
if you guys don't feel comfortable with making a decision on the process we're going to use tonight and you wanted to talk about it, we can, table it for the next meeting.
Well, let's,
But we need to go through all the different options tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Back to our original question about Joe in specific. These people get back from vacation, they say, hey, this is who we contact, and all of a sudden, by the end of August, that's all straightened out, and he's back in Houston. Why, is that not possible?
It would be lovely.
Wait,
but-
okay, let me reword that. What if they say this is, let me,
That was the
let,
response he was looking for.
I'm sorry.
well, they're gonna get back from vacation for the end of August, and then they're gonna
Monday.
tell you the, they're gonna
Monday,
tell you
I'm
the
calling Katie on
process.
Monday. Yep.
And then you're gonna speak to that, you're gonna start the chain of finding out how difficult it is to move that line and include him. Theoretically, that should not take that long, but
Theoretically,
Theoretically,
we
yeah.
probably have
Okay,
to go through two and
point
on
being
board
though,
meetings.
there's a possibility that's gonna happen, and then this would just negate any, you know,
Well, let's move it out. Let's say if it's all settled by the end of September.
For the end of the year.
have you dealt, Corinne, have you,
Can we
has
wait that
anyone,
long?
have you
Any-
dealt
yeah.
with this?
no,
With
this
that?
is all new.
No, this is,
Okay.
and did
I-
did I cover this in any of my superintendent classes? No, this is kind
Well,
of
let's-
like plumbing.
let's-
This is new area.
We're gonna find out, maybe there's gonna be a quicker response, and maybe we'll all just cut loose.
Something
and-
tells me things were less complicated when the lines were redrawn however many years ago than they would be today.
30 years.
Yeah,
ago.
I'm really curious
Well,
on the
chances are we'll
process.
have more information at the
Yes.
next meeting anyway. All we're
Yes.
doing tonight is listening to
So-
what our options are.
Yeah, I
Okay.
And
think,
next
Yeah.
meeting, we,
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with Gary.
That's
I think, let's listen to our options, sleep on it, the next meeting, we'll make a decision, because by then we'll know more of what Joe will have to go through to make a change, if that's
Okay.
even a
Please
possibility.
tell us the rest of our options.
So, go ahead, continue
okay.
on. Thank you, Mike.
Number two,
Moving right along.
appointing a previous candidate who secured the next highest vote total in the last general election.
Oh, you got it.
And no,
They were all write-ins.
they were all
They-
write-ins,
they would
so we
all
have to
be
look at
right,
who,
'cause
which write-in
You were the
secured
only
the
one who
most.
filed for the
Right,
open seat.
so it would be looking at all the write-ins and seeing the highest vote getting write-in from the
Okay,
last
what's the
general
next
election.
option?
Option 3 is requesting any person who wanted to be considered for appointment to submit an application. With this one, the board would also need to decide what would need to be included in the application. Is there a whole application that you wanted them to fill out with resume, or would a letter saying, I have an interest and here are my qualifications, would that suffice? Or just a letter saying, hey, I want to be considered? suffice. The board has to be specific, because I don't wanna say apply and then have 150 people calling, say has to be in the application.
I think if they write their name down.
Yeah,
Um,
keep it simple.
Or, and you have to open to, and if the board has decided that there is another process that you guys really feel strongly that you want to use, or you heard was used somewhere else, then the floor is open for your ideas.
Okay.
But that is the guidance
Okay.
that I can give within
Does anybody have any question on those points?
yeah.
I think if there's somebody out there that wants to apply, that wants to be on the board, I'd love to know their name. You know, I think that's a good option. I think people maybe resigned from the board in the past because they wanted to resign, and I mean, I guess we could ask them, but then as far as the previous candidate one, I don't even know if that applies, because those write-ins probably didn't even know they were being written in.
No, I think that we should handle all of the above with the same level playing field. And, you know, the downside of this is that originally they are elected, the public is open, and you have a certain time frame. So I would like to resemble that, the most of that we can accomplish. But like Mimi said, you know, as far as the past or write-ins are open, I think, to me, that's all.
And actually, if you go with, what I'm hearing is you're wanting to go with more of number 3. If you go with number 3, then that does open it up for any former board member or any
Yeah.
previous
Right.
candidate to
Right.
apply.
Right.
So
At that
then
time, we would come up
number
with a
3 is
process
most
of what we're
inclusive.
looking for.
And so then the word will get out, it'll be in the paper, and also just in general conversation, so then.
No, we're not leaving anything to general, we have to talk about how it's going to be advertised.
I
No, but I mean,
understand,
as
what
of
I'm saying
tonight,
is, this all of a sudden, someone's gonna come up to me and say, hey, I heard
Mhm.
that Joe's no longer, you know, able to be on there, so
Right.
boom. And then in the meantime, we're gonna find out how difficult it is for the property line,
Mhm.
or the.
So I would say we table it till the next meeting and then make
I
it.
think if we're gonna do application process, well, we're not gonna make a decision, but I think the time to discuss this is if we're gonna do that based on what needs to be on the application. I think we
And
should
what's
talk
the
about
time
that
frame?
tonight. I think-
What's the time frame? What's the advertising? All of those things are things that you don't have to decide tonight, but there are things you need to consider, because we
So-
have to decide how we're going to publicize it.
Shouldn't we have a policy for this?
So let's go
A
around,
procedure for
Trent.
this?
Let's look at this.
Well,
I
we've
think
used
what
it
we're leading
past
In the
to,
past, we've
has
used
been.
the application
yeah, I think what we're
process,
looking towards is number 3.
and the candidates have been interviewed, and the board made the.
Because you
voted
have,
on
you have filled it before.
Right.
So that's leaning towards number 3.
But how was it advertised? What actually was included in the application? What things, if we get more than one person, how is the board going to choose if there's not something else as far as qualifications listed with the
Well,
application?
let's give it a try and then see.
I mean, I think like you said, if we go with like number 3 and put it out there, and then make up these, or, you know, have somebody write it, why do you want to be on the board? You know, or something.
I think even more important than that is to let the potential applicant or candidate know what is expected. I think a past board member would know what's expected because they've been on the board. But somebody who wants to get on the board might not have that. So some basic set of expectations.
Yeah, like 2 meetings a month. Committee.
Availability
Availability,
for meetings, I think that is fair
In the
to
past,
inform
you're-
them.
I mean,
In
for
the past, we've
you,
had people drop out after hearing what they.
Exactly, so if you let them know as part of upfront, you can maybe get through people who are more sincere.
so basically come up with a list of what we consider what,
You need a school board member job description.
yeah,
I think so, a brief one.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know, what do you think?
No, that's a good
Yeah, I
idea.
think
That's a
that-
really good idea. Because, you know, why not try to don't wanna say it this way, but scare them off before they.
Well, it's
But I
not
mean, I
that,
don't
it's
mean that,
the,
no,
it's
no,
the
scaring 'em
reality.
But
I mean,
I'm not
it's,
saying
you
I'm
know,
scaring them off, I'm just
Just
saying
informing
I'm
them.
informing them on what's required, because like
Right.
Ron said, you don't want to have them go through all that process, and then you come in and say, yeah, you know, we have 2 meetings a month, and there is, and they're like, whoa.
And they're
I
on
mean,
this
there have been
night,
people
you
who
know,
have been
at this time.
elected who have come to that conclusion fairly soon after they started
Mhm.
serving, right?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's how you got,
Well, I was a past board member who was contacted, so I don't know what the order was.
Yeah, twin.
So I don't know what you decided, but there wasn't an application, so you must have chosen a process that was reach out.
It shows you.
It was like, okay, we got no, 3 strikes were out, let's try her.
So Ron, there was,
anybody have Mike
there
Lee's
was a
phone number?
questionnaire or an application that was used in the past, is there
Had
some?
an interview.
were you interviewed?
No, but I think the process the board chose was
I
to
was.
go
You
through oh, you were?
I
Oh,
like
really?
that. I
Okay.
like
So
what
both
Ron
of you
said.
were,
Both of them were passed.
Board
There were
members,
different times.
but I
Okay.
wasn't
but you,
interviewed,
but you both filled vacant seats.
yes,
Well, yeah, it was,
Okay.
yes.
as I recall, it was somebody who was on for 3 months and then that job wouldn't allow them
Be
to
here
take
for
that much
meetings.
time.
I think your interview of me was a phone call, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Are
Wow.
you
Were you
also,
appointed too?
you,
Oh, you
Yeah.
were? Wow.
off to FIDA, I didn't know this.
So you're gonna have
Norwegian or
a
Swedish.
description of.
Is that Norwegian or Swedish?
So what you're gonna do is like, we're gonna come up with a process, which you said, a description of the job description. And then what do we want them to provide to us for us to review? And then an interview. And then we come up with a decision. Is that kind of
And
the
then you post it
three-step
to the public,
process?
and if there's
The
5%
public has
of
to be-
opposition, then we have to relook at it.
Right,
Okay,
if there's 5% of opposition,
That will be amazing.
right, is it, right?
I mean, that's a
Well,
lot,
then
because
obviously
it was a
that
general
person.
election, it was a big election, right?
I can only think of maybe
Yeah.
2 people. one
But,
person.
if that was the case, then obviously we would wanna relook at it,
Yeah.
so. there you
if
go.
that's the case, we have to
Oh, yeah.
look at someone else, cause we can't
Okay.
swear that person in.
Does that seem about right then, that 3-step kind of process? to
And
everyone?
that gives us, if we wait, then that gives Joe some time to figure out
Mhm.
Yeah.
if it's feasible, if it's not feasible, what the timeline is, all that sort of
We're-
stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll have that
We're expecting a
information
call
at the
back
next
from us.
meeting.
So in essence,
I should
are
call
we
it.
kind of having a consensus here that we'll go with 3 unless Joe's
Well, we have a
Well,
consensus.
we
have a
will
con-
act on this,
we'll
or
act on it
just
next week.
next time,
What
next
we're
meeting?
doing now is we're coming up with a consensus on what we're gonna do.
What information I
if
need
we're
to.
going
If we're gonna go
forward with this.
forward with
Right.
this, but we won't make that decision until the next meeting.
So Joe has some.
So he has time to see what the process is
And
for
we're
him to
sure
do.
that we have to appoint somebody, correct?
Yes. Had he moved in January, we could leave the seat
Open.
vacant. But since he,
It's more than a year. It's a
he-
1
since
year, I think.
the
is what it's on.
resignation was acknowledged August 17th, it's in the 90-day window. If he would have resigned in July, then we would have had to do a special election.
Okay, then the next question is he appointed until the next election, or is he appointed to the end of the term?
It's to the end of,
The end of the
end of the term.
term.
End of
Well, it would
Joe's-
be till the
basically,
next year,
Elect-
year, but the next year is gonna be the end of his term.
Right,
Oh,
it's
that's
basically
true.
he,
Yeah.
whoever this person is will be replace Joe's timeline. Meaning that if Joe's timeline is over next January, which it is, then this person would have to be reelected at that time.
If Joe had just been elected last November, then the person that replaced him would, if it was just Joe's position running, we would know that that person was replacing Joe's position, and then that person would be sworn in the following, meeting in November, right away after the election. But since anyone
That's how it worked for me.
since anyone running, there's 4 seats that will be open this next
Next year, they.
next year,
No.
2018, we don't know which of those seats would be Joe's. And so then that person will not get sworn in until the January meeting. Gary and I were on the phone for a long time.
Okay. So, that's what we're gonna do,
Okay?
correct? Does everybody agree with
So-
that?
Just so, I will, get a school board member job description,
Mm-hmm.
and I will, do you want sample interview questions for what?
Yeah, sure.
Isn't there in one of our policies a basic thing that says
Yes.
school board members do
Yep.
these?
Code of
Five things.
conduct
Yep.
and so, and ethics.
Pull it down there.
Yep.
Yeah, if it lists, I can't remember exactly what it says, but
But we need to be more specific about the number of meetings per month and
Mhm.
times for the meetings and availability for those, so I will add that to that. Do you want sample interview questions or not?
I don't think at this point we need them, do we?
We will have to
If
eventually.
you've got them handy, it doesn't hurt to have them out there, so
No.
we have a chance to
Maybe,
review them, modify them, whatever we
right.
wanna do with them.
Okay?
yeah, give us half dozen. I mean, we don't,
It's more or
we're
less a
gonna
get to
ask
know.
one or two questions. We don't,
Yeah,
Right.
Is there anything else? Is there an application form you want to use, or would it just be a letter?
a letter, I think.
an email is fine.
Keep
Does
it,
it have to be a letter?
just
An
the old
email?
KISS theory,
Tweet.
keep it simple.
And to whom, and then,
Email.
Yeah, just to get to know you.
and then should I have a list of things that could possibly be included in the letter or email, and you guys can select from the list on what things you want included?
That
Okay.
sounds great.
Okay,
So, anybody have any other thing they wanna add to that process? Okay, great. So we'll table that till next meeting and make a decision.
Okay.
Announcements. Sporting events,
28th and the 29th is coming up rapidly, so, at the last, have you contacted the other board members as
No.
far as? Okay.
we're discussing that on the way home tonight.
Okay,
And then I will get out an email to Ann or somebody to get out to everybody.
and it is out right now, so if you wanted to email me, I can get it out to everybody.
I'll just give you a basis.
And
Are you setting them, are you talking menu?
No, just the main, no, because last time what we did is like Ron picked, okay, we're gonna have full pork. And you guys bring whatever, right? That we did last time pretty much. I think you brought,
We can do hot dogs, they're
You know.
easy for us to do and we have them in the store, so if you want those, we can do those.
Yeah.
If we can fit the meal around that, or you can just.
Designer.
Yeah, we can set it all
yeah,
on
designer hot
topics.
dogs, okay. I mean, Mimi agreed to have it up at their, building up there, so. And then Michaeline, we figured after we come up with a food, and then everybody can kind of bring something along that lines that will
do you wanna do
enhance
like
the
a,
hot dogs, if
a,
that's the
a
case.
Google Doc so people know what they're bringing, or?
I'd say just a buffet table.
Well, just so we don't have 3 potato salads.
Well, last
I
time
can
what we
send you
did,
a link to this. It's a potluck thing. It's specifically it's an online thing for potluck for people to.
oh, perfect.
Oh,
Will you-
send it to,
Will you be
send
doing
it
any
to Tom
donuts or
and,
anything for
I think I
dessert?
can handle that, yeah.
So the dessert's covered.
Yeah, dessert and drinks and
And
are
hot
covered,
dog.
we
Yeah.
can do hot dogs too. So
That-
it would
that
just be
works.
like, I don't know, I think they're pretty used to always having tomatoes,
Yeah.
Salads,
salads, beans would be nice, something like that, like a
Okay.
baked bean or.
chili sauce for the
If
hot
we're gonna
dog
do-
topping.
Oh, you got okay.
Maybe the potluck thing is too much. I mean, this is easier to just do it by email for,
Oh, yeah.
since Mimi's providing the bulk of it.
And how many people were we anticipating?
90.
90.
That's what we go with in the past,
If you
right?
feel like you need more tables, we could go and chase some down from Hoedown.
They're not that far away.
Salad. Yeah, salad.
So last time we had
beans.
like somebody brought some tomatoes, right? Was that Kevin that would always bring those or something?
Ron.
Or Ron? But Ron's not gonna do it this year, he's back out.
Well,
You can provide tomatoes?
yeah, my tomatoes are coming into their own right
we'll get it out, I'll send you, what, to finalize print, and then we can fill it in,
And the other
so everybody
thing,
knows. So think about it.
So it's a success.
on August 28th at 2 o'clock, from 2 until 4, Tom Cody from Top 20 Training is going to be talking to all of the staff in the gym as far as what it is to be a top 20 district, a top 20 school, and make sure that you're behaving in ways, speaking in ways, acting in ways that are positive and helpful and building a better culture. So if anyone is, any board member is definitely invited to that as well. So you can see that, that real cultural push that we've got going on
That's 2
within
to
the
4,
district.
correct?
2 until 4, yep. And I know that your thing starts at 5, so you'd still have an hour between the top 20 training and
Mhm.
the dinner. But, and then as a reminder, the school board self-evaluation session is at 6:30 on September 7th. That's why I wondered what information you really wanted from me for the appointment process, so we can have everything spelled out, because that meeting isn't going to give us a lot of time. And then the last, since the last meeting, I attended the MSBA back to school session and the MDE back to school conference. And Tom Melcher talked about finances, and we did get 2% and 2%. However, that's not keeping pace with inflation. So he, we are still behind, and not catching up as quickly as what Governor Dayton had hoped. Because we are, you also have to look at the fact that the special ed cross subsidies are really not keeping pace. On average, for every special ed student, out of our general fund, we have to fund an additional $852 for every student on an IEP. And so that actually takes about, of that 2% set aside, it takes about 0.3 of that. So what we basically got in the general fund was 1.7 and not a full 2, because we know we need to cover the deficit in the special education cross subsidies, because we have to do what's right for kids. Also talk about the world's best workforce. Next Thursday, I will get out the email tomorrow as far as having a district advisory committee meeting. For those who can attend, we need to do goals for the 2017-18 school year. The last 6 years, we have been looking toward 2017 with world's best workforce goals, with MCA scores, and 2017 has come and gone. And so I was hoping, that's why I was waiting with World's Best Workforce and having that meeting to get some guidance from MDE as far as what goals they were going to have. And they basically left it open for us this year. They said, as long as you follow World's Best Workforce statute language, you will be in line. So we have kind of a gray area. It's not kind of a gray area, it's a definite gray area. But as a committee, we need to meet and say, okay, what are the goals for 2018 that we think will keep us in line with where the state is going? But it also lends itself to really having some tough decisions about what does it really mean to be career and college ready, and what piece of data can we tie to that. With the literacy by grade 3, what are we really going to be using? Are we going to be using FastBridge? Are we going to be using MCAs? We're no longer tied to the MCA scores, but we do have QComp. And so QComp still has to use the MCA. So we've got a lot of those conversations, and I was hoping to have a lot more guidance. And so freedom is nice, but when you're looking for guidance, freedom doesn't give you the direction you really want. Willow Sweeney from Top 20 Training was there, and the push on MDE would really like to see all the schools look at that kind of Top 20 culture, because the push is that relationships, if we as adults don't first form the relationship with our kids, whether they're online kids, on-site kids, our summit kids, if we don't form that relationship first, they're not gonna care about the learning. And so it's about really building that culture. All the goals in the world won't the strategy. Let's see, Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Meaning all the strategy in the world isn't gonna get us anywhere if our culture isn't one that's nurturing and engaging for students. So that's something else we're looking at. And then we have the Gen X speakers, a father and son Gen Z, talking about Generation Z, and all of our students now are Generation Z, born between 95 and 2012. And they're very different than millennials because they don't know that phones they don't know of a phone that isn't smart. They don't know why you'd have to read a map. You just plug it into your phone, and one of the son that's 17 or 18 now and just graduated from high school and is taking a gap year to go on the circuit with his dad and do these co-talks, said the biggest frustration for him and for his friends was to sit in a class and get lectured by someone who was giving them information they could quickly Google.
Was this a father-son from Minnetonka?
Stillman, yes.
Yeah, they're a neighbor to my sister.
Oh!
Yeah, they live next door.
Jonah seems like a great kid.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was fascinating, and so much of it was just, when you're sitting and listening to someone and having all those aha moments. And some of it I'm going to do in the back to school, that we have to remember that the kids we have now are phygital, meaning physical and digital are all the same. For them, seeing someone on Skype is the same as seeing someone in 3D and being there. And we have to realize that. And the other night, reading to my great nephew, there was a little picture in a book, and he took his 2 fingers and he spread his fingers apart over the picture. And I said, "Oh, honey, it's paper. It doesn't," because on the phone,
That's cute.
the picture would blow up, and he just didn't understand why that picture. And I said, "Oh, honey, Auntie's old, and this is paper." And we have to understand that that's the digital natives we had. They're used to instant.
So I would just like to, when you say culture eats strategy for breakfast, I agree with that, but unless I have been missing something completely, I think that one of the great strengths that Houston Public Schools has is culture and caring and knowledge of our students. And so while there's always room for improvement, I think we are heads and tails above some of our other bigger districts. I even think, at least what I've heard from MNVA, is that the effort for homeroom, everything that has been talked about the last 2 years has been an effort to build that culture. So I hope that this just affirms what is being done.
MNVA started some of the top 20 training last year, and so this is bringing the rest of the district and also with the top 20 training, it gives us a tool to actually generate data and because there's the feeling and then there's the actual data that shows that it's not just a perception.
I would also like to see you, and perhaps you've considered this, looking at some sort of training, maybe professional development, maybe PLCs or teachers would look into the growth mindset type of, I mean, I think we need to turn to how to, we see kids who don't want to take a test, they don't, I mean, it's just how to turn them into a growth mindset population. So culture,
Yep.
growth mindset,
Yep.
to me, that holds a lot of promise for improving our scores and marketing our district.
And that's with the first conference. Most of that was about the growth mindset and really looking at assessments and why we're doing assessments and how we can engage students more and really be authentic. And one of the presenters said his biggest pet peeve is saying, well, you have to do this to get ready for the real world. He said, what kid is not in the real world right now? The world they're in is the real world. And it's tying it back to Generation Z, since they're used to everything so instant, they really need to be explicitly taught critical thinking and problem solving because they want fast answers. They're used to just Googling it. They have to be taught that reflective thought. They have to be taught not what to think, but how to think and how to be self-evaluative as far as knowing they're growing. And I talked way too long, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
So-
did a lot of classes in the last week.
Very interesting.
So, that it on that?
Mhm.
So meetings and committee updates. We talked about the evaluation committee meeting we had prior to this.
And when will the next one be?
We talked about having it before the next board meeting,
And the next board meeting is September 7th. September
So,
7th
but-
at 5 o'clock, we already have an online
But what I was
committee
gonna
meeting.
say is maybe we should look at a date between now and then. So, and will she be back next week?
Yes,
So we have an online committee meeting September 7th at 5.
right.
Okay.
What about, well, there's an extra week in there, there's August 31st.
Mm-hmm.
Could we just do it then, that Thursday?
Gary?
Okay,
Sure. What time?
Well, what time works for you? 5, 6?
That's fine.
Of course, we have a football game that night.
so we need to be done by 7.
Yeah, I have to be there by 6:30.
Okay,
So
would 5 give us
5,
time?
an hour and a half, that should be enough time.
Okay, and then, I'm not sure if August, what days are you available for district advisory committee? Are there, because school's starting for you?
Well, next week I'm still okay, but the
Okay.
week after I'm out.
Okay, so next week, what days are you available, maybe, because you're on the district advisory committee as well?
Next week is state fair, so I
Oh.
don't know.
Okay,
Well, if it was like Monday or Tuesday.
and we've got HVAC trainings on those days. So would a Wednesday work for you?
It works for me, because Mimi's gonna be able to be here.
Sorry, it's,
Okay, I will see if a Wednesday works, and are you available to meet during the day then too? Because most of the district advisory committee is teachers, so,
Yep. I should do that.
okay. I will see if we can have an August 23rd district advisory committee meeting, just so
Mhm.
we can start,
August 23rd, no, not 24th.
yes.
Okay.
if it was during the day that day, I could probably make it.
Okay,
So we have those two meetings going up, and then the online on the 5 o'clock on the 7th.
right,
Okay.
and we're getting back in the swing of things. September 5th is gonna be here fast, and everything is ready.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, anything else on the committee meetings, updates? Okay, you have any other feedback or anything you wanna bring up? kind of
Oh,
talked a little about future agenda.
feedback, I just want the community to know that the water in the slough or the pond is not,
Safe to drink.
well, no, it's not safe to drink, nor is it safe to jump in, but it's also, we have no jurisdiction over that water. It's part of the flood mitigation, so it's controlled by the city and, DNR/Army Corps of Engineers. Because it's flood mitigation. So we own the land around it, but the ponding itself is part of that. So the city has put signs next to it saying that the water is toxic. The geese have moved out on their own. I've talked to a representative from the Minnesota Pollution Control saying that they have tested, they know that it's a toxic blue-green algae. However, they don't think it is from any wastewater because they have been assured that none of the homes or buildings around the slough are on septic. They have been assured that they're all on city sanitary sewer system, which I know sounds like an oxymoron. But since it's not from wastewater and it's all from naturally occurring algae producing materials, it just has to die off, and it's they just said this summer was ideal growing condition for that particular type of algae. So they did say heavy rain should break it up and make it sink. And if it doesn't, he's looking into whether we can sprinkle it with alum, because that will make it clump and sink. But he said that they do that in lakes in northern Minnesota, and he is in southern Minnesota, and he said he doesn't know much about it, but he will do some research.
So does the city kind of keep an eye on it since it's their responsibility to ensure it's done?
Yes.
They should be getting back to you instead of you doing any of the recon?
Well, they did get back to me, and I just was double checking.
I know, no, that's fine, I'm just saying. I mean, I know we have kids, but I just wanna make sure that the city's
Well-
doing their,
It probably has a lot to do with the fact that it's runoff from the streets
Right,
and the yards and fertilizer.
Right.
And what have you.
and,
Because
And
all
I-
the water from, the storm sewer goes in there as an overflow system.
right. And it keeps the town from flooding. But I also pointed out that we've got football players on a football field right next to it, and we've got September 5th, over 200 students in this building, and I want them to be safe, and I want the environment to be safe for them. And he thought that it should be broken up by then, but he said, in the meantime, it will be obnoxious, it will smell. And
so they're gonna come back down and test it again?
It didn't sound like they would, but I know that neighbors, first came and complained here, and then when they found out that we can't put anything in the water,
Right.
nor can we take anything out of the water, they went to City Hall. And so that kind of precipitated, Minnesota Pollution Control coming in, and they got their hip waders on and went out and took a sample. And then admitted, it smells.
Well, hopefully the city's on it.
I just wanted to let everyone know the school is aware, and we're doing everything we can, but there's not much we can do.
Will there be an announcement on the first day of school, just saying?
I had, Todd contact all of the coaches, so that if the volleyball girls were running outside, they ran away and not around the slough area. The football coaches were informed, so that they would be sure to be practicing at the other, at the practice field
Sure.
behind the group home, so that they were away from as much of the algae as possible. So we're trying to keep the kids safe, and the notifications have been gone out to the people that work here as well.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns on that? Is that it then, Corinne?
Yeah,
So at this time, we want to close the meeting for a negotiation strategy. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion on it? All in
just-
favor?
just so that, since this is basically the last thing, we will probably not come back into this room.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Well, I'll adjourn to the other room. He needs to take a.
This is where you break.
Yeah, I'll take notes and then I'll get those typed up and give it to him.
Yeah,